Welcome back, everybody. We're diving into some really cool research today about AI and mental health. It's kind of wild. This research paper is looking at using stuff like step counts and how often we talk to people to figure out,
Yeah.
maybe even predict things about our mental health, like if someone's dealing with depression or how their overall well-being is doing. And this is all coming from research presented at the 2025 CHIL conference.
Wow.
It's pretty mind-blowing, right? Let's just imagine if our phones and wearables could help us get a better handle on our mental health. I mean, that's what this research is all about.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating idea. There's so much potential there to go beyond like the traditional ways we assess mental health and really tap into all this behavioral data we're already generating. It's all right there.
Yeah, and the paper itself is called Beyond Prompting, Time2Lang Bridging Time Series Foundation Models and Large Language Models for Health. So break it down for us. What exactly is Time2Lang and why is everyone making such a big deal about it?
Well, Time2Lang is this new framework the researchers developed to help AI analyze things like step counts or like how long your phone calls are,
Yeah.
over time. And then the really cool part is it can connect that data with these large language models. Those are the same kind of AI that power all those chatbots everyone's been talking about.
Right.
But in this case, they're using those AI to decipher patterns in human behavior that relate to mental health.
So instead of just asking someone how they're feeling, we could use AI to analyze, I don't know, their activity levels or their phone usage to get insights into their mental health. Could that actually work? I mean, how do you even feed that kind of data into an AI in the first place? How does that even work?
Yeah, that's the big challenge the researchers were tackling here. The traditional methods were really, really clunky.
I bet.
Just picture trying to convert days and days of step count data into TXT for the AI to process. It's a nightmare. So time consuming, prone to errors.
Yeah.
And you need all this specialized knowledge just to format the data correctly.
Oh, I can only imagine. So Time2Lang basically streamlines that whole process.
Exactly. It's like a universal translator. It bridges the gap between this time series data and the large language models. Gets rid of that whole messy text conversion step.
Wow. So it just directly connects the output of a time series model to a language model. Is that how it works?
Pretty much. They used a time series model called Chronos and directly linked it to a language model called Llama.
Two AI models working together. That's so cool. How do they even get that to work?
So they used what's called synthetic data.
Synthetic data.
It's basically data that's artificially generated, to mimic the patterns you see in real-world data.
Oh, okay.
Think of it like a training ground for Time2Lang, where it learns to connect the dots between those two models. They gave it a specific task called periodicity prediction, basically teaching it to recognize patterns in the data that repeat over time.
Okay, that makes sense. So they're basically training Time2Lang to be bilingual. It can speak the language of time series data A and D, the language of large language models.
Exactly. It's like a superpower.
That's pretty wild. But let's get down to brass tacks. What kind of real-world applications did they actually test this on?
They looked at two pretty different aspects of mental health, depression and what they call flourishing.
Interesting.
First, they analyzed step count data from a 90-day study of people with major depressive disorder. And they wanted to see if Time2Lang could predict daily depression levels based on those step count patterns. They were using the PHQ-9 as a benchmark. It's a standard questionnaire used to assess how severe someone's depression is.
So a higher score on the PHQ-9 would mean more severe depression, right?
Exactly.
So what did they find? Could Time2Lang actually predict depression based on step counts alone?
Well, a PHQ-9 score of 10 or higher usually indicates depression. And in this study, a whopping 68% of the days recorded had a PHQ-9 score in that range. And the crazy thing is Time2Lang was really good at predicting those scores.
Really?
And then they also wanted to see if it could predict something called flourishing. It's a measure of overall psychological well-being. Are you doing well? Are you thriving? That kind of thing.
Flourishing. Okay. I like that. Tell me more about that study.
Okay, so for that one, they looked at how long people's phone conversations were.
Oh, interesting.
They took that data and used it to predict flourishing levels in a group of 46 college students. Track them for 10 weeks.
Wow. So the idea is that how much and how often you're talking to people could be a clue about your overall well-being.
Exactly.
So two totally different data sets and two totally different aspects of mental health. Did Time2Lang actually deliver? I mean, did it live up to the hype for both?
That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat.
In both cases, Time2Lang consistently outperformed the traditional methods for analyzing this kind of data, especially when they looked at longer periods of time.
Oh, that's pretty impressive. So it sounds like the more data Time2Lang has to work with, the better it performs.
Right.
Did they compare it to any other methods besides the traditional ones?
Yeah, they did. They actually found that even when they added domain knowledge to those traditional methods, basically giving them a boost of extra information about depression or flourishing.
Oh, okay.
Even then, Time2Lang still came out on top. And this part, it was way faster than the other approaches because it doesn't need to waste time converting the data to text first.
Faster A&D, more accurate. That's amazing. But I'm really curious, how does Time2Lang actually DO all this? How does it pick up on those behavioral patterns? What's going on under the hood?
That's a great question. To understand that, we need to talk about embeddings.
Okay, embeddings. Lay it on me. What are they?
Think of embeddings like translating something really complex into a code that AI can understand.
Right.
Time2Lang creates these embeddings for the time series data. which allows the large language model to basically grasp the patterns and make those predictions about mental health.
Okay, so it's taking all that raw data, like step counts or phone call durations, and transforming it into something that the AI can actually digest.
Right.
But what makes Time2Lang's embeddings so special?
Well, get this. The researchers discovered that Time2Lang's embeddings have this really strong connection to a statistical measure called autocorrelation.
Autocorrelation.
Basically, it means that those embeddings aren't just picking up random blips in the data, they're actually recognizing meaningful trends that repeat over time.
Oh, wow. So it's looking for patterns that actually mean something about a person's mental state.
Exactly, and that's what makes this research so promising. This connection to autocorrelation is huge.
It's pretty remarkable, honestly.
It is. It
Yeah.
really is. It is remarkable. And, we keep talking about all the technical stuff about how Time2Lang works, but what does this all really mean for mental health? Like, how could this technology actually be used in a practical way?
Right. Let's talk applications. We've been super deep in the weeds here, but I want to know how this translates into, real world scenarios.
Okay, so picture this. Someone's smartwatch is tracking their step count, right? And all that data is being fed into Time2Lang. And let's say the AI notices a pretty big drop in their activity level over a certain period of time, something that's unusual for them. That could be really valuable information for their doctor.
Yeah, it's not about replacing doctors, right? It's about giving them more to work with, more data so they can make better decisions.
Exactly. Time2Lang could be like an early warning system. It could flag potential issues and lead to earlier intervention, which is super crucial for conditions like depression.
And it could help create more personalized treatment plans, right? If we understand someone's activity patterns and how those relate to their mood, we could tailor treatments much more effectively.
Absolutely. Think about all those therapies that encourage exercise or social interaction. With Time2Lang, we could track the impact of those interventions in real time and make adjustments as needed.
Wow. We could fine-tune treatment plans based on actual data.
Exactly.
That's a game changer. What about applications beyond depression? We were talking about flourishing before. What could that look like in a real-world setting?
Okay, let's say, hypothetically, a college campus decides to use Time2Lang, and students can choose to opt in. They can decide if they want to share their data or not.
Okay, so not everyone is automatically enrolled. They have a choice.
Yeah.
Got it. What happens then?
Well, the AI could potentially pick up on students who are showing signs of social isolation, maybe they're withdrawing from interactions, those kinds of early indicators that their well-being might be declining.
Right.
The university could then step in, be proactive, reach out to those students and offer support services or connect them with activities.
So it's about creating a more supportive environment, being proactive instead of reactive. That's a fascinating idea. I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. It's not just about predicting depression, it's about understanding mental well-being on a deeper level and then finding ways to actually support it.
Exactly. And think about the potential for research.
Oh, yeah.
We could gain so much insight into what contributes to mental health across entire populations.
It's pretty exciting. We've talked about step counts and conversations, but what about other types of data? Things like sleep patterns, social media use, location data from our phones. Could Time2Lang analyze all that too?
You're hitting on a key point. This is just the beginning.
Whoa.
There are so many possibilities for using AI to understand and predict human behavior. And as we gather more data about ourselves, those possibilities are just going to explode.
That's both incredibly exciting and a little bit, I don't know, daunting. It makes you think about what it means to have all this information about our mental states floating around out there.
It definitely raises some important questions about privacy and making sure this technology is used responsibly.
For sure.
We have to proceed carefully and involve ethicists and policy experts as we go. It's really crucial to have those open discussions about the potential benefits and risks.
Transparency is key, and individuals need to have control over their own data, right? But I'm also wondering about, the accuracy of the predictions. What happens if the AI gets it wrong? What kind of safeguards need to be in place to prevent that?
You bring up a super important point. We need to remember that AI is a tool. It's not a replacement for human judgment. Any insights that come from Time2Lang have to be interpreted by qualified professionals.
Yeah.
And it's all got to be considered within the context of a person's overall health. It can't be looked at in isolation.
Right, it's a partnership, not a replacement. That makes sense. And of course, there's the whole issue of potential bias in the data itself, right? Yeah. If the AI is trained on data that's not representative of diverse populations, those predictions might not be accurate for everyone.
100%. Ensuring diversity in the data used to train these models is essential if we want to avoid perpetuating those inequalities that already exist in healthcare.
So much to think about. So the takeaway is the potential of AI in mental health care is huge, but we need to approach it responsibly, ethically, with a focus on equity. This has been a mind-blowing conversation. I feel like I'm still processing everything. You mentioned earlier that Time2Lang is just the starting point. So what's next? What are researchers looking at for the future?
One of the big things is refining those predictions,
Yeah.
making them even more accurate. As we gather more data, those models will continue to evolve.
More data, more refined models. What else are they exploring with Time2Lang?
Expanding the types of data that can be analyzed. We've talked about step counts and conversation patterns, but there's a ton of other behavioral data out there, sleep patterns, social media activity, even GPS location data.
Wow.
And imagine integrating physiological data, things like heart rate variability or even skin temperature.
It's like a multi-sensory approach to understanding mental well-being. You're painting a picture of a future where AI could be this incredible tool for personalized mental health care.
Exactly. But perhaps the most exciting avenue is exploring how Time2Lang could go beyond prediction and move into intervention.
Intervention. That sounds like something straight out of science fiction.
I know, right? But imagine a future where Time2Lang not only identifies someone who might be at risk for depression, but it also suggests specific things they could do based on their data.
Yeah.
Maybe it recommends a certain type of therapy, a support group, or even just something as simple as spending time in nature.
So it's not just understanding the problem, it's actually suggesting solutions tailored to each individual.
Right.
It takes personalized healthcare to a whole other level.
Exactly. Time2Lang could actually be this proactive force for positive change, helping us understand and improve mental well-being in our daily lives.
This is all so fascinating. I need a minute to process all this.
It is a lot to take in.
We've covered so much ground today. And before we wrap things up, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought to ponder. We've talked about all the potential benefits of Time2Lang and how it could revolutionize mental health research and care. It's exciting stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely groundbreaking. But, it's important to remember that Time2Lang, like any tool, has its limitations.
That's a great point. It's easy to get swept up in all the possibilities and forget that no technology is perfect. But I think there's another angle to consider here, something we haven't really touched on yet.
Oh, what's that?
Well, we've been talking about Time2Lang as this tool for, understanding and predicting mental health. But what if we flipped the script a little?
Flip the script.
What if instead of just seeing it as a way to diagnose or predict problems, we saw it as a mirror?
Mirror.
Yeah, a mirror that reflects our own choices and behaviors.
I like that. Tell me more.
Our phones and wearables are already tracking so much about our lives, right? Where we go, who we talk to, how well we sleep. Time2Lang gives us a way to analyze all that data and maybe get some insights into our mental state. But what if we use those insights not just to react when something feels off, but to proactively shape our well-being?
So instead of waiting for Time2Lang to tell us we might be at risk for depression, we use the data to make conscious choices that support our mental health.
Exactly. What if we saw a sudden drop in our step count, not as a warning sign, but as a little nudge to get moving? Go for a walk, connect with nature, maybe call a friend. What if those late-night scrolling sessions became less about shame and more about realizing, hey, I need to prioritize rest and disconnect from the digital world for a bit?
It's about empowering individuals to take charge of their own mental health, using data as a guide, not a diagnosis.
Right. It's about shifting from a reactive approach to a proactive one, from trying to fix what's broken to actively cultivating well-being in our everyday lives.
It fits in really well with this whole movement towards personalized medicine, tailoring healthcare to each individual instead of relying on a one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly. And it highlights this idea that mental health isn't static. It's a dynamic process that's influenced by so many things. Our genes, our environment, and yes, our own choices.
And Time2Lang could provide that personalized feedback loop, helping us understand those influences and see how our choices actually impact our well-being in a very real way.
It's like having a personal trainer, but for our minds. And while those ethical considerations we talked about are still super important, I can't help but feel optimistic about the potential here. It's not about handing over control of our mental health to AI. It's about using AI to become more aware, more empowered, and ultimately more responsible for our own well-being.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Time2Lang could be this incredibly powerful tool for creating a more proactive and personalized approach to mental health care.
Well, that's a wrap for today's deep dive. We hope this exploration of Time2Lang and all its possibilities has given you a lot to think about. And as always, we encourage you to keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into this fascinating world of knowledge.
Until next time.